Geoffrey Chaucer was an English poet and writer, born in 1343, died in 1400. One of Chaucer's works is the Canterbury Tales. It's a series of stories cleverly set up by Chaucer's setting the narrative with a group of pilgrims travelling from London to Canterbury. To entertain themselves on this journey, they each tell stories. One such story was told by one of these characters called the Pardoner. Now, Pardoners were real people in medieval Christianity. A Pardoner was connected with the church and travelled around raising money and offering people indulgences associated with the remission of temporal punishment for sins. That is, punishment in this life for sins. There was a belief that confession removed eternal guilt, but spiritual damage and temporal consequences often remained. And so, one must pay a physical price to mop up a spiritual mess. Sound dodgy? This system, of course, was susceptible to serious abuse. And Chaucer's Pardoner is certainly an example of that in this story. He basically admits, I'm a fraud. He tells his listeners that he carries around holy relics, fake holy relics, like ordinary bones and objects that he claims have miraculous powers. He preaches emotionally about sin and frightens people into giving him money. And his favourite sermon topic is greed. Now that's just the joke, because the Pardoner himself is incredibly greedy. Nevertheless, he tells a compelling tale, and this is the Pardoner's tale. It goes something like this. 3 young men are drinking and partying in a tavern when they hear a funeral bell. They discover that one of their friends has been killed by a mysterious figure known as Death. Drunk, angry, and boastful, these 3 swear to hunt down Death and kill him. As they travel, they meet a very old man. They rudely demand he tell them why he's still alive, and the old man explains that he longs to die but cannot find death. He tells them, though, that if they're looking for death, they'll find death beneath the old oak tree down the way. The 3 hurry to the tree, but instead of death, they discover a huge pile of gold coins. Immediately, their mission is forgotten. Like, who's looking for death? They decide to take the treasure, but because moving it in daylight would be quite obvious and conspicuous, they might be suspected of robbery, possibly tried, killed. They wait until nightfall. They draw lots, and the youngest one of the 3 goes into town to buy food and wine. While he's gone, the other 2 with the gold become greedy. They agree that when their companion returns, they'll kill him, because a half is greater than a third, and they'll get more gold. But the youngest man has exactly the same thought. While in town, he not only buys food and wine, but poison. He puts poison into 2 bottles of wine, keeping a third on his hip for himself. His plan is to poison his companions to keep all the gold, because a whole is more than a half. When he returns to the tree, though, there's an ambush. The other 2 kill him as planned. Now, having murdered their friend, they sit down to drink his wine before disposing of his body. Of course, they drink the bottles and both die. And so, beneath the tree where the old man told them they would find death, all three men find exactly what they were looking for. The central moral is the biblical warning the pardoner repeatedly uses. The love of money is the root of all evil. The great irony is that the pardoner himself, of course, is greedy and corrupt and would charge good money for a story like that. So Chaucer gives us a story about greed told by a very greedy man, which is quite artistic. In this section of Ecclesiastes we're looking at today, it's a section between chapter 5 verse 8 and 6 verse 9. We see a very artistic presentation of poetry from the wisest man who ever lived, King Solomon of Israel. He is no doubt an artist, as well as extremely rich and insightful. And he uses here in this text a literary form called chiasm or chiasmus. This is where a block of text moves from either end toward a focal point. It basically presents the concept back in reverse order. It poses a concept and repeats it back in reverse order with corresponding parallelism. It's complex, a structure, and when done over a passage of scripture or any poetry, it requires great skill. But again, it can be just a statement, such as John F. Kennedy, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Chiastic. Or we might say, one should work to live and not live to work. That's chiasm. Paul would say, for I do not do the good that I want to do, but I practice the evil that I do not want to do. And that's chiasm within a greater passage of text from Romans 7:15 to 20. That's a chiastic structure. If you read it, you'll see that it moves towards a point and then repeats back out. You would be absolutely surprised by how much of this structure is in the Bible, every single book. And, it's quite a skill. All of this is to say that in Ecclesiastes 5:8 to 6:9, Solomon is structuring his findings in such a way as to address the love of money. He will show, moving in from each end of that passage, that the love of money is a sad investment. He will then show the love of money is a bad investment. And as a focal point, he will say to trust God is a wise investment. So let's look at Ecclesiastes. We'll go to the end of the passage, 6 verses 7 to 9. All of a person's labor is for his stomach, yet the appetite is never satisfied. What advantage then does the wise person have over the fool? What advantage is there for the poor person who knows how to conduct himself before others? Better what the eyes see than wandering desire. This too is futile and a pursuit of the wind. Have you ever had a Christmas dinner where the food was really good and you just had to try everything? Dad? Or maybe you found yourself at a buffet lunch and, you try to pace yourself, keep it respectful, but they just keep bringing more and more fresh delights, and then you turn a corner near the end and you find out there's a whole nother section you haven't looked at, and you just need to try it because you're here and, you don't want to insult the chef. And so you turn to the person next to you and you make them promise that they will never allow you to come to another buffet again for the rest of your life. Mum, you done that? We've all done that. We've all eaten too much. And we said we don't even want to eat for the rest of our life. And maybe we demonstrate that by going home and skipping dinner. No, lunch was massive. I'm not even interested in food. Take it away. But the next morning you wake up and you have breakfast. Why? Because you're hungry. You have just the day before acquired more than you could ever want. And what does the new day bring? A new appetite for more. So what have we discovered? The appetite is never satisfied for long. In fact, if we're honest, we discover in life that the appetite is only ever appeased. It's never fulfilled. It's never satisfied. It will grow and knock on that door again. And so is the appetite for wealth. Whether we're rich or poor, smart or dumb, we can feed our money-loving appetite all we want, but we will always want more by nature. As the first century Roman poet Horace said on this theme, greed is not decreased either by surplus or shortage. Greed just remains. This is showing the chiastic structure in the beginning of this passage. If we go back to the start of this section, if you see the oppression of the poor, verse 8, and perversion of justice and righteousness in the province, don't be astonished at the situation, because one official protects another official, and higher officials protect them. The profit from the land is taken by all, the king is served by the field. The one who loves silver is never satisfied with silver, and whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with income. This too is futile. When good things increase, the ones who consume them multiply. What then is the profit to the owner except to gaze at them with his eyes? The sleep of the worker is sweet, whenever he eats little or much, but the abundance of the rich permits him no sleep. This is the love of money and its subsequent pursuit. If we're pursuing the meaning in life through the acquisition of money, we will see what Solomon saw. It's a sad investment of one's life. It is an unquenchable hunger that causes corruption and oppression. We've looked at those topics over the last couple of weeks. Solomon's seen that in the world. We've considered how it plays out here. How is the love of money a sad investment? It breeds corruption. We have a picture of that in verse 8. But we see that play out in the world. We have a picture of that probably in our mind, don't we? Corruption, money, power. We see high-ranking people exposed all the time for all sorts of crimes and corruption. Epstein files ring a bell? Not anymore. We think, all right, finally justice is served. They've been exposed, and then, before too long, silence. When's this big day in court meant to happen? Dismissal, acquittal. There's nothing to see here. I don't remember that. But there's a big trail of money if you turn the lights on, no doubt. Corruption is sad enough, generally. But on a personal level, it's sad, isn't it, to see those individuals corrupted? What have they become? All they've done is serve money. That's all that's happened. They're still beautiful people created in the image of God. They've just missed the identity of God. And their God is brutal. It is a sad investment. It is a sad idol to worship money. They will remain insatiably hungry for more, enslaved by it, possibly killed by it. But they'll never have enough. There's a sadness in the fact that some could have so much and yet be so unsatisfied. That's sad. That proves another sad investment of one's life. That the rich could be unsettled, and someone extremely wealthy could be so discontent. But it's true, because it's all havel. It's futile. Furthermore, when the good things increase in the life of wealth, the ones who consume that increase. Sometimes for good reason, there's an erosion of those finances because, look, someone has to maintain the gardens. Someone has to clean the house. Someone has to cook those meals. Someone has to fight the legal battles and manage the accounts. So there's good reason why, with a big portfolio, there's more people to consume the portfolio. That's understandable. And yet, there's leeches too. The entourage. The ones that are employed seemingly full-time consumers of one's wealth. Feeding off the wealthy, otherwise mistaken as friends. One of the fiercest and richest boxers in the world, Mike Tyson, at the height of his fame, had an entourage that was quite famous. That entourage would cost him $500,000 a year in those days, in the 90s. That's quite a lot of money, because it takes a lot to sustain the travel, the hotel suites, the daily living expenses of this core group of friends, this entourage. Sorry, that was $500,000 monthly. Yeah, monthly. He paid specific staff members massive sums, such as one aide named Crocodile. He paid $300,000 a year to simply dress in military fatigues and yell "guerrilla warfare" at his press conferences. I'd love that job. I'd do it well. Tyson frequently bought high-end luxury cars, including upwards of 19 supercars at a time, to hand out as gifts to members of this entourage, alongside expensive watches and large amounts of cash, of course. Solomon knows this better than anyone. Solomon says to Tyson, "I feel you, brother." He observes in verse 11, when the money flows, the leech grows. And in the end, all you can do is watch. And if that's not sad enough, the worker sleeps like a log peacefully, while the rich man tosses and turns at night, wondering how to grow it all, protect it all, acquire more. Now, moving on in our chiasm toward the focal point, we see that the love of money is not only a sad investment, but a bad investment. Not only is it sad, but bad. Chapter 5, verse 13. There is a sickening tragedy I have seen under the sun. Wealth kept by its owner to his harm. That wealth was lost in a bad venture, so when he fathered a son, he was empty-handed. As he came from his mother's womb, so he will go again, naked as he came. He will take nothing for his efforts that he can carry in his hands. This too is a sickening tragedy. Exactly as he comes, so he will go. What does one gain who struggles for the wind? What is more, he eats in darkness all his days, with much frustration, sickness, and anger. That's a sad picture. If money's our idol and the rock on which we stand, which is sand, actually, we're resting our full weight upon something that can disappear in one fell swoop through economic disaster or bad venture, through corruption and deceit. Something that looks so promising that falls through the floor. It's stolen, essentially. If what we're leaning our life upon is that fickle, we're in trouble. When money disappears, in that case, sometimes it takes the life with it. If that's what that life was built upon. Tim Keller writes in his book of a string of suicides that followed the global economic financial crisis in 2008. He says the acting chief financial officer of Freddie Mac, the Federal Home Loan Mortgage Corporation, hanged himself in his basement. The chief executive of Sheldon Good, a leading US real estate auction firm, shot himself in the head behind the wheel of his red Jaguar. A French money manager who invested the wealth of many Europe's royal and leading families and who lost 1.4 billion of his clients' money in Bernard Madoff's Ponzi scheme, slit his wrist and died in his Madison Avenue office. A Danish senior executive with HSBC Bank hanged himself in the wardrobe of his £500 a night suite in Knightsbridge, London. The point is, making the pursuit of money the point of life is bad. It's not only sad, it's bad. It is no life. It is an inevitable death. A death, Solomon reminds us, would be just as penniless and naked as our birth. So for all of that, what do you get? A chasing of the wind. And what do you do when you catch the wind? What do you have? Hevel. Wind. Hold on to it. Jesus asks us in Mark 8:36, and I believe he asks us here today at Maroubra Baptist, what will it profit someone if they gain the whole world and yet lose their soul? The question's rhetorical. There's no profit. There's no profit if you come into an inheritance of the kingdoms of the earth and lose your soul. And so Solomon cites the person here who's made money their god, at the end of that passage alone in darkness, frustrated, sick, and angry. He also points out that God is the one who enables enjoyment. We go to chapter 6, verses 1 to 6. Here is a tragedy I observed under the sun. This is the counterpart. And it weighs heavily on humanity. God gives a person riches, wealth, and honor so that he lacks nothing of all he desires for himself, but God does not allow him to enjoy it. Instead, a stranger will enjoy them. It's going to be passed down either to lineage or out there to businesses, and somehow it erodes, disappears. You go, it stays, it circulates, right? Someone else will enjoy that. God has not allowed them to enjoy everything that they've acquired, which is everything they could possibly want or need. This is futile and a sickening tragedy. That's life without God. It is futile and a sickening tragedy. It's time now that we move on to the main point of the chiasm. But suffice to say, the lover of money can neither earn enough, nor can they enjoy enough to ever fill that God-shaped void in their heart. Only God can fill that. And it's both sad and bad to see a life invested in that pursuit. It's a chasing of the wind. So here's the concluding point, the point to which the end of the passage and the start of the passage are working towards. Chapter 5:18. Here is what I have seen to be good. So this is good. He's found it. This is the meaning. Lean into this. It is appropriate to eat, drink, and experience good in all the labor one does under the sun during the few days of his life God has given him, because that is his reward. Furthermore, everyone to whom God has given riches and wealth, he has allowed him to enjoy them. Take his reward and rejoice in his labor. This is a gift of God, for he does not often consider the days of his life, because God keeps him occupied with the joy of his heart. Have you noticed here, God allows enjoyment? God is the giver of this gift. God does not allow the enjoyment of the satanic gift. The satanic gift is anything not attributed and joyfully stewarded under God. The satanic gift was what he offered Jesus. All the kingdoms of the world, they could all be yours. I'm the God of this world, in Jesus' words. Little g, Satan. He has it all. He has all the resources. And if you hear Josh's testimony, which I've recorded and will share at some point, I don't know how yet because it's wild and long, but it was just exactly that. Satan just lavished on Josh every kind of riches you could ever want. And when he turned to get closer to God, Satan offered more. He couldn't enjoy them, by the way. So we should find ourselves leaning in here to hear from this wise man, Solomon. And what we find when we lean in here, pen in hand, ready to take this down, because this is the key to life. Listen what he says. Eat, drink, and enjoy your work. Well, I hope you didn't pay a lot for that seminar. It was short. Eat, drink, and enjoy your work. If you think we've been here before, we have. This is the fourth time. The wisest man who ever lived in the pursuit of the meaning of life has come to that conclusion. This is the fourth time we've heard this. But notice something here. The eating, the drinking, the labor. It's limited. It's limited to the few days of life that God has given. It's not lamented, but it's still limited. And if God has given us limited days, which are our allotted time, and He has, that's our time to enjoy food, drink, labor, community. That's our reward from God. But firstly, we should note there's something far superior to the gift, and that's the giver. There is something that surpasses our health and our wealth and our experiences, and that is only God, the God who gives those things, but allows us to enjoy them. He doesn't allow some to enjoy. He allows us to enjoy what He has given. What Satan gives, that's an endless pursuit of deception and slavery. No one's going to ultimately enjoy that. And as time goes on, these allotted days that God has given us, the panic of that satanic gift and trying to hold it and suck the life out of it, it's lifeless. Panic sets in. The gift of wealth and riches can only be enjoyed with the gift of joy. And joy comes from the Lord. Joy comes from nowhere else. Joy comes from the Lord. It does not come from money. It does not come from status or anything else money acquires. Joy is God's, and it's God's to give. Just as riches and provisions are heaven sent, so too is joy. The ability to enjoy them. And our insatiable, materialistic souls will never be satisfied until we come to know that and come to know the Lord as our provider. Until we come to God with open hands and say, Father, thank you so much. I'm so grateful for today. I'm so grateful for this meal. I'm so grateful for these clothes that you've given me. Lord, thank you so much for this job that you've given me. I want to work for you. I want to leverage everything I have and steward everything I have for you and for your glory generously as a blessing to others as you have blessed me. Lord, take what you want. It's yours. It's not mine. Every day I'm grateful for the provision and counting on the provision of the Lord. It's a faith journey that says, God, I know you'll never fail, so I'll never worry. So I'm going to enjoy. I'm going to enjoy this kebab. I'm going to enjoy El Jana chicken salt. And I do enjoy that a little too much sometimes. But with a glad heart, I can sing rejoice in the Lord always, only with the Lord. And I can't rejoice in life any other way, really. And with gratitude, I eat and drink and labor in this fleeting life to your glory, Lord. However long it is, Lord, until you call me home. And when you call me home, that's just fine. I'm not panicking. I'm not trying to hold on. I'm not trying to build and amass. I'm enjoying. And when you call me home, it won't be a day early. I'm yours, you're mine. I glory in that fact every day, and I have joy in my food, in my drink, in my wardrobe, in my relationships, in my job, in my holiday, in my rest, in my play. I enjoy my life. That's the key. And then, obviously, we observe what Solomon did in verse 20. That person does not often consider the days of his life because God keeps him occupied with the joy of his heart. Who cares how long I've got? Do you want to know how long you've got? Do you want to know if you've got 2 days left? Or 20 years? Or 40 years? I know, Jim. I know you would have liked an early mark, I think, a while ago, but that's another issue. And so we conclude here with Solomon what Jesus said years later. No one can serve two masters, since either he'll hate one and love the other, or he'll be devoted to one and despise the other. I would add to that, one will kill him, one will bring him life. One will depress, one will bring joy. You cannot serve both God and money. So let's choose